Okay. This is it. Here we are. We are live. We are live on YouTube. Um, and this is Tuesdays for the Poetry with your host, Gary Dale Burns. This is um, our eighth night, I believe, of poetry. And I'm very happy to be streaming with you on this different platform. So we'll see who comes over from Instagram. Wordman, you're already here. Thanks so much for stopping by. And yeah, and let's get started. I don't really have any book recommendations. I am just going to jump right in, mainly because I'm just still reading the same books that I've been reading, and I need to finish them and get started on some new ones soon. So here we go. We've got Homologue is the name of the first poem in January 2006. This was written. The baited trees, torn of their flesh, stick out from the earth like bony hands by the same light which bleached them, only older. Acknowledging the evidence of someone's remains whose soul still burns at the core of this graveyard, where the colorful plants of burial bloom from gray seedlings. Facial hair. Like the church organ's deep contralto and its trumpeting wails, my young beard can disallow itself with tenantless patches. That jeopardizes the harmony if shown as a sound, pricked up pointillist dents decoded inside the music box will nail shut and play when eyes meet. Your glances inciting shutter noises, perceptively announcing discord in boyish endeavor whenever I attempt to agree age and experience with these arthritic features. This next one's an interesting poem about the Sago or Sago, and I'm actually not sure of the pronunciation, West Virginia mining accident that happened in early 2006. It's called The Other Side of the Air. Gondolas carried them as Nordic funeral boats, an eternal pyre crackling in its flames, even past points of extinguishing. But before the wires and after the Zeppelin, black, finite reality was still germinal, desired as much as coal to be grasped. Moments in between the shaking bell, alarum of ancient earlobes, was the stilted breath of hope of escape. Not only for the 12, but too for the impromptu choir and their many cookies, the beds and the warm, wakeful pride around them. Fatal dormancy exploded again, again without reason, and again without caution, expurgating belief in dusty upheaval. Though whether the tunnels were aquatic or aerial, not even the robot found out. She became too human, like the asphyxiated items. Annuit coeptis, but worry less, because when miracles bend to fury, he hadn't justified the jubilee or the hallelujah. One salvation for the other side of the air, for Sago's saddened bitternesses, for blessed abandonment of logic. Tragedies like these make monuments when cartilage works like plaster of Paris and hardens bones into tearful gestures. That Latin annuit coeptis, God has approved our beginnings. And you'll find that on Dollar bills. Never or rarely again. This poem has parts. 1. Whenever I chose, it was slowly done, on a bed of compression, lack of springs except for our knees cramping up during tiny advances that shortened our small infinity for the consolation of physical advantage. 2. Things silent and cold, harbors where I did not dock, wanting rather the sea, the raucous soft storm and throes of thunder filling in the meaning of speech, remained untouched except when a careless hem of her shirt and my sweater fell in abandon, two beluga horns that reached sleep-drunk ears, in minutes' time losing the warmth we gave them. 3. You were colder in the dark blue morning, together becoming a kettle to boil, the arctic aged blood of Same inside. It was enough to see us into daylight. But as from skin left after kissing, all the movements became the phantoms of severed limbs and pale lines, surrendered by a flag stroking tan horizon. 4. What I wanted, and that trace sojourn between tips of face, lasting unlike the impressions of shape inside clouds, was the balm of a young woman in air without smog or shroud. Where water ends and an ocean begins. Black exoskeletons in spasm against an unbreachable glass. Mime the suckers of stiff octopi, as if aquatic I sit inside artificial submarine bowels, the portholes perspiring in acrid sweat, quite safe but so nervous. Neighbors. Fuzzy light from covered lamps. Every night I come home and dim my own, as to not frighten the fox or foxes in the opiate den. Hiding from bloodhounds and sleep, fearlessness either smoked or injected like toxic vitamins, though through vent of fan I only see soggy shades of green trim, or cords strung away from odd origins. On the windowsill are a Sherlock pipe or dice or an elephant of false size and skin, some lost shards replacing laughter. At the angles of their blinds, many slices of orange morning fall short to awaken any surface inside, but again I conclude as much as the darkness tells us when night's nearly silent, that their men on horseback are frightful, galloping round forest under skull caps. State of relation. To be so thirsty that you walk upon the frozen river which keeps a water that once tasted bonds its vitality to you, evermore searching for the small cracked hole which so happens to be found at your feet, whether downstream or upstream, and to contain the words like steam which lack understanding in between another's ears is a state of relation I know not of. An unseasonable freeze, a winter brought on by consequence, not season, but it lacks what it lacks in temperature is neutral, as some surfaces are composed. This is fine and fossilized, like the factor of understanding in either complete totality or fragmented brevity. We drew up betwixt us tongues as quills. Our friendship is like waving to another in similar navigation. Frayed fingers spaced on our hands, symbolizing a gesture of revere and humanity. Not always in agreement with your tactics, but wonder towards a rusting heart and work, communing with metaphors of mind, trading with me in oil to provide pits of the knees, flexibility for scouring, for partaking of a bare armed man in gentle and casual sacrament. An allegory, yes, but it's wetted your foot, so I lend my ears and lobes as towels. Good advice. People always want to give us good advice. We'll see if this is any for you. The trick to surgery is that you are cut and then sewn back up before you bleed to death. Maneuvers in between shall dictate to what degree you survive. How well you give under knives and the anesthesia's touch of your amphibian brain will decide what you can and cannot feel. And not every procedure do we strike the arteries or the nerves with purpose. Each assertion to cut is not always held by a hand with intention. Yet once dimmer are the lights you lie beneath, it is neither charity nor larceny when your insides are tactile and touched. Before you wear a gown or contemplate operations, there is a necessary choice of the actual. This is that, in precision, a trick will work for fools who practice wood medicine, but under the care of one who trembles at your trembling. A fatal move travels true with every lovely attempt. The trick to surgery is that you are healed before any red paints white. Unworthy. Walking up 23rd Avenue, pages from a cat themed calendar create a scattered carpeting to welcome the way home. But it's all just too damn goofy. Author as Mason and Pharmacist. These poems will be hurled at you like dense bricks, so catch them because it will be worth building something, or swallow them because no pill can sit so heavy to remind you of digestion, of energy, of moss and the lichen eating everywhere. I have so many interesting things around me to proclaim their novelty and necessity. For me, for you, for mentioning. That a book with no spine held open to joy could be read in the green of two eyes, or that the tasting of tears is like a gauge of repair. So let them settle for foundations, or sing in your palm a bit, but only if, when your hands get rough or your stomach churns, you'll think upon Gestalt psychology and how robust the whole shall be. Minutes after 5 a.m. The stain on my cupboards was a marbled cloud of brown. For only 3 seconds was this to be found. Next, we have disputations and consultations. The heat of irrationality, sitting in a chair, the same as bearing a distant desert. Scattered winded metaphors being the solar waves and not the breeze, stirring bangs under a low arena. Calls like to a radio station for self, but at once to thousands, screeching speakers, insulating applause. The headache of confusion doth never come to the comic. His painted face will mock what is tense. But smears of funny colors do not translate into these dialogues between stations of lives. All air is rushed much slower through a tangle of treed assumptions with little or no resulting accommodation. So you have these puffed gale forces made of oh so many pronouns and adjectives, but not enough to raise our old Greek. The history of proliferating his bones black on the page to masturbate intellectually, it is so tiring when they want you to watch, hear the rhythm and its pleasure principle, that there should be no argument. Well, this clown of poesy drinks to deference. Difference being, I can compose this all the more closer to a spirit of Herodotus. Minimally, I let it all get to me, though there are many fraudulent frequencies one may hold shelter against the nondescript. Keep the metaphysical colloquial to street corner, vicarious never. The solid, cool feeling of speaking to appear without the malaise of games. The visible bits. The visible bits. Walk into the room. Unlock the door and walk into the room, and it is dark. There is that dark, dark shade that is only from the window. Down through the two windows, but don't turn the light inside on. Shut the door behind yourself. At the side table you know is there, the top is very white. Undo your jacket, take off the scarf, and pull off your sweater. Pull the sleeves out in front, and see sparks of static electricity dance from your cuffs to the seam of the shoulder on the sweater. Allow this to be the only light made before making yourself comfortable enough to sleep after being awake for 48 hours. Mining for summary. Mining, definitely a theme in a lot of my poetry. Going into the ground, caving even. So this is mining, though, for summary. Here, play this harmonica. I want to hear how old you are. Plant these seeds. Wait, peaches are a late August crop. Conjugate verbs. I want to prevent any rust to a metal heart. Here, walk. I have a similar stride. And places we can go. Here, touch my skin. I want to be a neutrino, a lambent thing, a piano for composing. Here, sit at the stool or bench, play or draw or write. All you could do is perfect, everything you will do is more. Here, have this paper napkin, dry your tears. Diamond requires such force and pressure to be no longer a coal with energy to spend into a valueless rock. Here, settling on a couch or in a theater seat, with no love may I compress you. Tokenism. Tokenism. Cowper's glands. Oh, I gotta start that over. I think it's Cowper, but it's Cooper. The English. Okay. Tokenism. Cooper's glands. The reed is chipped. Half the tonality. Sums on a tabletop. Fleshy legs. Beside legs. Steel and ebony. Cerebellum retaining. Fingers in some position. Not the associated notes. Calculating up emotions. which equal an impacted guilt, have not a stark enough box for entry. Repeated improvisation, like an impostor conducting free jazz, attempting to dance a ballet at the wrist. Aversion therapy, beneficiary of several hundreds exempting the wake upon a white parturition, shame at silently lying. The music is pleasant. A self betrayal. The same wall I hug when she matters more than me can be entrapment. That was a short one. The next one, we'll just call it "Naming It for You." I don't have a title on it, but that's what's repeated quite a bit. So this is "Naming It for You." Naming it for you like a place well established, further north or east across an ocean many years before, as from a republic or territory. Near water sources, on high ground and level altitude, with seasonal rapture of woodland below tree line and above where stone is washed to sand. Naming it for you like a wind ever vagrant, streaming o'er rough lands of the nearby years, colder places than forecast in today's shapely clouds. What is wild upon the fair soil, and what may be tamed from the bare ancient peaks, or low sullen deserts, or brown high plains, gives it growth. Naming it for you, an essence of humanity. Our preceding palindrome, this absent and accounted thing, let us damn and bless it, thriving grateful our consciousness. A thesaurus entry. There are these poemless moments, often when I shiver from base of spine to uvula and loose my mouth open, as if I were to issue either putrids or mints, where I am a placeless part of the unseen spectrum. While having a sickness of the body, insured against an infection of word, but not a hospital fee of which I'd rather taste a death's preamble, a lick of limestone sitting erect, cold and bloodless. There I am, a rosary and an invalid, dry mouthed like an animal of taxidermy. While I can still bleed from the nose and think how romantic tuberculosis would be, feelings about anything are sand, weight inside a bland bag of canvas, numbers for needlepoint, the scale of handshakes, and tilted arms red. I am billions of kilograms. They are not as terrible as occupation. A dominant knee I wrestle forward in many years, like the rocks of Niagara, will wear in fluid but stay stationary in socket, demanding forgiveness of gravity by way of a thing on crooked and sheer. I am a blood clot in these moments, clogged up in the discipline of my own endeavors, but never so long as to grant a stroke. Gatherings of dust force a sneeze of mumblings to stir all my humors from sleep. In honey concave, teacup bottoms, vase enough for flowering. The propagated poetic nuptial agreement, which is, I am not to be unoccupied, as knee, knuckle, or nasal cavity, because other than germs I must catch that which suffers a tactful snatching. Forts of feelings. Whites, yellow, become some evidence to place in an empty matchbox, kept inside breast pocket. Maraschino cherries jarred with the cold at the end of rolled cigarettes, refrigerated unburned offering. Diary box enduring diets of echo in desperate carnality, consuming only its own rusty stillness. Orange for decaf, unspoken yet agitated, brewing what he pours, absence as sentiment inside. Forts of feelings, guarded by placeful utterances, paperbacks to hardcover spines. Most of the spirit abridged. This next one's called Homesick. Don't know if anyone's following the link from Instagram. Well, we'll see. Homesick for glens inside curves of leg, peninsula feet, regions in and of themselves, poised to be graceful plates, slow gripped and floating on fluid aflame densities, momentary. Homesick for natives and habitation of one, with doors to kiss open, a hammock-length cradle between two memory trees, a fireplace to stoke. Location with my unremembered memories, held up by heels pattered down, like reindeer hooves, with direct Arctic intention, so much so with surety. It could be water torture. I turn to hear in curious anguish, often. Homesick for identifiable lives in these clothes, to wear and look as Salinger in a photograph I saw of the author in fitted shirt and slacks, as if single stitching transposes his confidence to me, to that place internally, awaiting dark baptism for becoming a Holy Ghost. Starch clean by the font in garments for the temples. My parents layered underneath unknowingly to conceal their own houses of worship of shame and burning lust, embers hot enough for a weak but desperate magnetic glow. Homesick for strangers, replacing the stand-ins who have acted unforgiven and lost. Thus far, with candorless improvisation, amateur elements likened to paper-bound waves, sawing the air out from under me, passionate frigate, drowning. Homesick for an adaptive sandbar, perhaps in the usually empty appendix, with Christ both in birth and death by manger wood, those lost, unseen feelings identical to any love ever felt. Alongside him, I'm a mirror and valued. The shoreline is visualized eternity. Their haiku, whoever they are, but this is their haiku. It's not my haiku. It's their haiku. Their haiku. She tripped as she walked into the top stair. He looked ashamed, but smiling. Wisdom in laconic weather. Short breaths from Montreal. Excuse me. Let's try this again. Wisdom in laconic weather. Short breaths from Montreal, like sleepy outgoing postcards, and Quebec is left by apocal glaciers onto landline wire that bends thick across the border and ends at a tower as a siren's silent correspondence. Chance has a members only jacket. You will only ever smell her smoke line stains lingering between the blessed visited's roof of mouth and scoop of tongue, confessions and spittle spat across at you, impossibly wet with unearned joy. Words interchangeable like mobile pictograms, relieve two under an awning shelter, inundated but only past their ankles, dry by way of keeping lie, preservers, sauntering and subtle. True, what once was tried, what once was trivial, averting for transient love. The wisdom and laconic weather. Not wanting the case of the next one to be a question of who is the child, you or me. Dull Americano stained teeth like a bleach, smiling from words, coyly brave, grinning with predetermined imagination. Connecticut becomes addressed to my verse. Serifs swing on ends of letters, like postscript hasps I leave unlocked. My wardrobe doors entrances of reply to either ghostly saloons with all the liquor drunk, or delighted trees from canopy to trunk, bearing love with pits to ripen love true. Okay, we made it. Poem 300, 300, the 300th poem that I've written, and this is called Tantamounts to. Well, we'll see. Recent research shows Christ was most likely not white. So, for all the racist Christians, let me be your Christ. But I won't die for you on a cross because I do not think you have ever sinned. You've only been very human, very evil, or less so. I wake up in the morning, impressions of sheets on my skin. They look like scars, but I'm no slave, nor have I been. I am not allowed to empathize with hundreds of years of oppression. I was born emancipated, which is all very sad because the only thing it shows is that we put ourselves so far from understanding one another. We reach out to mirrors and put fingers together, and that seems like the closest we ever get. Okay, there's that one. Like a prince to his pilot. The side of your face bristled like a tennis ball surface and wet. What first you feel on a pillowcase. Then your mouth is like the inside of a washed out glass jar, still glazed with dew, with the worn, tightly packed field of wilted lettuce that is your tongue. Once the torso is rolled into the bright watchdog kitchen light, horror! You feel that you have but one arm, the other was severed in the dream, left to your zombies and old friends who seldom remember your name, but you want it back. So you shake for the magic of a snow globe and feel the ghost of the arm begin to take form. One such imagining is flailing your pupated arm like a crab pincer aiming outward to thwart, devour. Life returns. It is miraculous. You feel the newness of birth in the limb, and with your matching limb, your monozygotic twin, consolation and encouragement are kisses with fingertips and palms to joints. Soon, but with wrist somewhat stiff, to your relief it's reconnected, reconciled, immunized. It is a swan's neck. No algae, water from the pond of unconsciousness stuck, and you arise. The droplets beaded still, for the mirror sparkles up underneath your eyes, on skin 10 years younger, and you knew it. You told yourself, like a prince to his pilot, you are young yet, and just need some sleep to draw yourself up a sheep. Some the Little Prince references in that one. Okay, next we have someone maternal. I'm sitting on the floor on some pillows for this one. Trying to, there we go. Better for the lake. Okay, this one's an interesting one. Sorry, plant. Someone maternal. In transit, I stood shortly above, a seated gentleman with small sprouts of gray, declarative among his mousy hair. That afternoon, stranger sat, perusing through his shoulder bag, when I felt the urge to lean down and kiss his head, out of love for his being, like I was someone maternal. The affection taken without surprise, he turned around and took the hand I left on his shoulder, benevolent to say, I will be okay, looking into my eyes without age or sexism. But in a few seconds' time, when I remained unwillful to move, to actualize any aforementioned motion, with a social theory around my bones tied, I knew he'd reciprocate in violence or scream with an infant's defiance. In a key is something captured in every winter branch our leaves. For each coal you feed, it steams my heart, an engine is enraptured. Had once blood oranges shared a continent's company, now they grieve. Your warmed lips, their sorrow sheaves, I kissed as if from a grove freshly picked. Underneath a cold ocean's bed sleeps the wooden chest of all our dreams. Like divers on one breath, we seem to have some blossoming bubbles freed, imprinted with a promise of return. Beams the pulp behind your mouth of leaves. Okay, we got a couple more, and then we have something very special this evening. It's a reading of the first self published work that I ever put together called Haiku Composed on an English Tour. While I've been writing these poems in the early 2006. I had been working late night at Stepping Stone Cafe in Northwest Portland, where I lived at the time, and I have been saving money, and I've been taking bicycle maintenance classes so I could learn how to fix my bike in any kind of circumstance. And I have acquired a passport at this time, and I'm planning on going to my first uh, international trip um, off the continent. I'd been earlier to Canada, but to England, which I really wanted to visit in my 20s. So we're almost there. We're almost to England and to those haiku. But first, we have unpaid postage. 13 cents is all it will take. There on the slip, a simple mistake. In one dawn, the yeast for a bread I can obtain to bake what you said in my mind. The ovenless depths, no light to read, recipe steps in my heart, a glowing red heath. Sorry, hearth, heart and hearth. Ugh. Light and hot air to rise up the mirth. Your letter, this notice for gates, unlocking words, kept sealed state to state. 13 cents from 3849, all your crossed O's and devoting lines. So we get a few haikus pre tour, pre trip here. From dryer to basket, a pair of socks found each other. Cotton love. There are too many of me, so I think I should kill one I know best. 3 hour talk with sleepy water eyes. Did we catch our reflections? Okay. Crashing but landing and leaving. This is a poem um, written during the tour on June 19th. But the first haiku in the tour cycle is June 3rd. So I think I just recorded this a little earlier. Um, I wrote a smile machine. Oh, I'm sorry. This poem is called "Crashing but Landing and Leaving." Crashing but landing and leaving. I rode a smile machine to a complex night, inebriated at arrival, and you were alone. We sat on a couch, and you shared faces old from chemical and time, and your face was tired, but young and soft, so light. So we went upstairs and let our arms be strings, our hands kites, pulling back and forth against the winds, our breathing, kissing across our cloudy flesh under dim stars, and we talked, laughed, and you wanted a cigarette. So we fell down at our own feet, a record player and vinyl engraved. Somehow music was made, and I couldn't smoke, dry and cool, although hot air rose and with us was brought in our heads as balloons over an ivory coast, crashing but landing together in a breathless bundle. We were ripe with comforts, and I picked you for pleasure, swift and sleepy and sexual, and I blew out your cigarette, leaving us on your new bed in heavy but limp strings tangled under your hair while I departed. All right, now we move into the English tour haiku cycle. Um, maybe I'll put like a link to uh, a few albums that I put together, some pictures that I took, so you guys could see, the pictures that I took while I wrote these poems. Um, okay, so here we go. The moo of the cow, the buzz of the bee, both deeply sung, despite sighs. Hare, jackdaw, and fox gardens along summer roads, their insides blooming. No bug in my tent, no worm in the food. Now I sleep, no fears I keep. Staring at all the trees, if only I could find the one most pleasing. Village fate, village woman, I found both in Nash and left each like dreams, showing me what happens to grounded lightning, dying Bedfordshire moth. The ants and I at war over dried figs, both with our queens. Diocese of Eli bells could be ringing from Africa or Cambridge. Mating butterflies, cyclone of sex, yet soft and silent. I'm still hungry after eating, still traveling after moving. Clouds sowing wildly sun patches, the veil in calico. Rolling little playful green lizard, ah, you're but a lost summer leaf. Squawking mother bird, I haven't traveled this far for your moorland eggs. Man in pinstriped jacket, shirt, and tie. Solid pants make you a sad clown. Smiling back at you, small, new, 12-month wanderer searching for some love. The English grasses bowing at my departure in turbine wind. So that's the end of the cycle for the poems that were written in June of 2006 into July, into early July 2006. Then I made my way back home, and I kept writing haiku. So here's some more. Avoiding your hooks, bait of brown eyes and fingers that kiss what you fish. You are a cold candle sleeping in my bed, tired from all the moths. The only man I've ever loved, and for his faults, called me this morning. Homebound, 4 a.m., velvet summer breeze, smells of unused food on me. The moon is a bruise, its cycloptic eye, yellow through the slivered lid. Winter snow will melt from under chilled rain before I write its haiku. A strand of blonde hair on the bus handrail, stranger's soul waving goodbye. Cat jumps out like a popped cork from the house. And then these are two little lines that ended up years later in some proverbs that I wrote in a William Blake style. But it started here in September 2006. Semen, grass, and a heather pram is all one needs to make a lamb. Started getting interested in cycles and sequences and poems. So we have now a sequence poem called "This Paper Diamond," which my friend Ash Ryder ended up uh, writing a song with the same title. One, not even wanting really to place it down, but knowing that I've chosen to believe by speaking of love. For my future, I sketch outlines, remember dreams, and the animals of finery, imagine with the rim of my smile, to keep the wet analogy that hope is to dying as tears are to crying. Two, speak with my tongue inked for the present joys and the presence of tears, opened and with a full heart's head between devotion I weigh, but by the scales in my cradling palms, not through piercing inquiry to embury some 1,000 words she's already turned in for time with me, silent or quiet, haiku length moments. I couldn't say if it is dissatisfaction with the sound of shovel to earth, breaking clumps of hair like icy grass, or when expectation catches the foot of intuition, as the moon eclipses, usurps the sun, we are held in dark, uneasy suspense. But truly, when those cold shadows pass by, everything kept hidden inflates to fill what grave we've dug and brushed with blood. Undertow, I want a geyser out, above the found and the lost, screaming big sounds, baffling seagulls, unbearably staring into the mercury sun, all limbs a joyous mess of express. For even now, even with incalculable anger, I believe in singing democracy. I believe in singing discovery, and I cannot help myself with these lyrics, archaic fables, fresh touches, keeping me afloat. The string as much as the wind of this paper diamond. And that one took me almost a year to write. So I began it in August 2006, but I have a note here that April 2007 is actually when it was finished. So yeah, that was a first. Just adjust my seat here for a second. I think I've learned not to read from the floor. Always trying out something new with this thing. Okay, relatively this big. A poem on poetry. The drops of water that make a glass, or the sand specks that make a desert, handshake the calms and becomes the end of an oar, rowing us along. Curls of hair, enclosing and creating stranded Cape Towns, which burn floral like smells. The sixth ocean, floating on her scalp shore. How large the smallest things behind your eyelids, behind the layers, foundations sinking and sloping without gravity, but not weightless. Your force, nor what you act upon, is solid or defined. Yet you'll still have a cold drink during muggy summer days with a lover when you can't hold each other too long. The beachless pool shines. At night or early morning, or the time when neither are discernible from the other, that's when the smallest things are the brightest. It's always just quiet enough to see them then. They are settled, and sound carries the sails of similar images no more. It's all relatively this big. Morphine. They will bar this section of the trail at night from the beasts that prowl swiftly, barely leaving their hind paw prints like a ghost's kiss in the wet open veins of earth, where red and breathless you ran, anchor dragging, rope flapping out the mouth of a most androgynous animal, tumbling towards you and you to it. So do not fret any over fearing their needles will squeeze through kindly, barely leaving a record of their passage. Cloud. Everything I could ever do ends with her, not in the way a wall ends passage or the way a fuse lit will end life. Her end is the cloud, damp with moonlight, that hangs over my eyes as if I were a blind dog. Nearly blind, sight enough to see the rose, oyster pearl underbelly of that graduated fog, condensation on high, above the very city that tints it. This is her end, where everything your senses could touch, taste, smell, or hear lose all quality. I suppose it is rather wombish, and that is why I love her. Question me to reaffirm, I will not give answer. Her end confuses you? Well, perhaps end is not the right word, but it is some word, and so is cloud. It was what I saw last before I came to her, and it is all I remember or will recall. Autumn's guilt. Yellow dropping off wooded limbs, revealing the lines of serpentine bodies stretched out, nothing but pastoral blue, naked and exposed shoulders, freezing by harvest, the daughters of orange moonlight, sunburst from the summer nights. It is their absence of pale embarrassment and the embrace of a covenant with weather that we die each time we reveal ourselves, bursting open and shriveling at an equinox, and we breathe and know clear nudity turning us red as family trees, with autumn's guilt, wrongfully red, with a gulp in our throats. I have a few out of order here, but uh, yeah, just about four left. Here we go. So, on walking west over the Burnside Bridge, watermelon of produce row, grit of skin and earth on concrete, smell of the ocean, musk of the river, the charred uterine seawall. Harboring a stillborn ancient boat, piss-stained jeans and sweat-stuck shirts, dry and poor tobacco clouds floating away from the lighthouse. Underneath the yelp of puppies, blankets with the smallpox of homelessness, footnotes on the radio waves of progress, high-pressure water trucks shaking like prison bars, tastes of dirt from under fingernails in the air. All what is to be stirred and settled again. Go across, fall across, be across. Sweet children, point and ask your questions. A gash of drowning blue sky rose up from the smother of clouds to gasp. Cup and saucer. Cup and saucer rest into each other, fit one on top, one on bottom. They were made for each other. Mire of hay dust, frothy and frozen, skin like a flood record, sits in the cup, stuck and still. Patient indifference, shaking the table, shifting the light through the handle. Gullet of the cup, holding as a bone-white palm found in a quarry, its temporariness. There is something between the earth and the air, soft pulp, fire impregnated and water birthed. The cup held firmly, if only for a chrysalis. The saucer is a branch, and the liquid a leaf, stiff like a bit lip, to fall past the teeth, enough to gesture a form of the life underneath. And two poems left, two short ones. Gonna make it just under an hour. Cold rice fallen on the black earth after a wedding of storm and sky. And lastly, dark tree line, splinters of a broken seed, its pulp in the winter air. So that's it for tonight on Tuesdays for the poetry. Thank you for tuning in. I'll be posting this onto my YouTube channel, which hopefully over time becomes the place that everyone comes to after migrating from Instagram. But it was a good run. I like the wide format here. I like this is nice. This is nice. I could include a lot more going on over here at home. So join us next week for another Tuesdays for the Poetry, Tuesday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we will hear poems from the year 2007 from Gary Dale Burns, your host and poet, at the ages of 21 to 22. We'll see what he gets up to next week. See you then. Good evening and good night. Bye.